Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Michael. We're very excited to have you joining us on a hot morning
day
here in Charlottesville, Virginia. But as we said in the opening, this is a great opportunity to get into a nice, cool spot, get your café con leche, your iced café con leche, and watch some Today y Mañana. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing good, trying to stay cool.
You always look cool, though.
Oh, thank you, Alex. I try my best. Cooler than the other side of the pillow, right?
There you go. There you go. That's always a plus.
Yeah.
You know, so we got some great guests today.
I'm excited.
That we're excited for. We're going to be joined very shortly by Noelle Gray. She's the owner of The Dray. Then later in the show by David Deaton and Thompson, the co-founders of Mindsalt. And then certainly not least, Matthias from Matthias Realty is going to be joining us for our monthly conversations with Matthias. We got a lot to cover. Stay tuned. I do have permission to say on the show what the new opera and musical from Charlottesville Opera is going to be in the next season. So stay tuned for that. Michael suggested I
told him wait for the end. This way you keep people hooked.
I feel like that. You know the Trapped in Paradise for Nicolas Cage when he goes, I better know how to keep you in suspense. I better know how to keep you in suspense. So I will keep everyone in suspense for that. Of course, big shout out, love being here on the I Love CVille Network. Big thank you to our great presenter, Emergent Financial Services, as well as our awesome partners, Matthias Realty, Craddock, Sirius Insurance, Castle Hill Cider, Forward, Adelante. Appreciate everyone who turned out.
Yes,
for
last
the Today
week.
Mañana appreciation event. Last week we had some great people.
Yeah, with beautiful weather. It was at Castle Hill Cider. It was packed house, great food, always good cider, a lot of fun times.
You know, and just a great opportunity. I love seeing all the guests that we've had on kind of meet each other or find out kind of who they already knew.
Yeah, it's a small world sometimes.
Like
there's certain people that's like, oh, I already know this person. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, we even had like some guests bring other guests of their own. It was open to anybody, and we're like, I know you, just not from the show.
Exactly.
You know, there were a couple of guests when I was like, I know this person, but I didn't interview them on the show.
Yeah, was this person on the show? I don't remember that.
So that's always a blast. Love our audience already. We got some great people tuning in. Monica Miller from Montana is watching this morning. Thank you for joining us. Robert Boland tuning in this morning. Monica says, "Good morning, Urpí team." Good morning, Monica.
Morning, Monica.
It's always fun to have you joining us on the show. Thank you again, Robert Boland, for tuning in this morning. We got lots of fans that I know will check us out this morning and will send us any questions, comments, thoughts you have, and we will read them out and tell our guests how much you love them, or ask any questions that you might have. So we love doing that, and I don't know about you, but I'm excited to get started.
All right, let's go.
Let's do it. So we're excited to welcome to the show this morning as our first guest, Noelle Gray. She is the owner of The Dray. Noelle, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure. So for those who haven't met you yet, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of the genesis behind The Dray.
Yeah. So I guess I've been drinking wine for probably longer than I should say. But I grew up in a wine family, and so it's always been a part of my life. About 2012, my father and I were thinking about doing a wine website, but we wanted to have beer as well. So I kind of, since he was allergic to hops, I kind of took over the beer side of things and started studying fermentation science in much more depth.
Yeah.
And so I never left wine ever, but all fermented things are good. So I was doing that. At the same time, we had a family print shop, and that's the location we're in now. But with the pandemic, that kind of chopped us off at the knees a little bit. And then there was a toner shortage for about 6 months. And if you don't have toner, it's really difficult to print. So we talked about it. That's when I made the decision to pivot. Because, fermented things are always going to be around. They're always, it's always a good thing. So,
I think even especially after the pandemic, I think they probably jumped a little in popularity.
Exactly, yeah. So, because for years I'd been thinking like maybe I should open a brewery. Wine shop just presented itself. The location was good. The capital investment's a little less than opening a brewery, especially right now.
Oh, absolutely.
So we pivoted and I took over the lease and opened up my little shop.
So how would you describe what the Dray is? Like when people walk in, what?
Well, I try to focus on wines that are kind of overperforming for the money. So with a specific focus on 20 and under, especially where I am, you know, with the corner. Well, who doesn't like a good wine for less money?
Absolutely.
You know? So it's a very small shop, so it has to be a highly curated selection. But there's so many gems that you can find under $20. You know, price does not necessarily indicate quality when it comes to wine. And a lot of people, you know, forget that. And so what I'm trying to do is just focus on just overperformers. Even the ones I have that are obviously I have wines that are more than $20, but even the ones that I have that are over 20, you know, in the higher end, I want them to be overperformers for that money too, because it's so disappointing. You know, there's so much good wine out there, but there's a lot of bad wine too. So what I do is it passes through my liver first, and then I put it on the shelves. So that's the gist of the shop.
And when you do like your wine tasting to figure out which wine like you want to kind of put on a ship, do you taste it like by itself, or do you try to accompany it with food to kind of like give people like a pairing?
I usually taste it by itself first, but I'm constantly drinking from my own selection, like making sure, because you'd be surprised how much case variation there is too. That's one thing I've really learned. I haven't been open a year yet, but within this past, you know, well, it'll be a year at the end of September. So,
oh, nice!
Yeah,
we're coming up on the anniversary.
But how much bottle variation there is and how much case variation there is from like even lot to lot.
Wow.
So I try to, like, if I you know, I'm constantly tasting and selecting and trying to get the best that I possibly can. And if it comes, because there are different releases with wines. You know, you have kind of your first release. It's where you get the good reviews. And then later in the year, you release a little more. Maybe those wines aren't as good. So I try to, you know, pull from my own stock as often as possible to make sure that, like, okay, this release is not as good. I'm not getting this wine anymore. But yeah.
Wow, so you have to continually monitor it.
Yeah, I do.
Which makes total sense. I mean, how many times, right? It's true. I mean, especially when you're dealing with, you know, you may have a brand or like a brand with a drape and everything that you recognize the bottle. You have it one time, it's great. You have it like a couple years later, and like, oh, what happened?
Yeah,
like it's not.
This is not what I remember.
Exactly. I think we're so used to, you know, like, I think as consumers, we're so used to when you buy a product, you kind of just expect it to be the same every single time. But wine doesn't work that way. The year to year,
wine's a fickle lady.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is beer fickle in that way too, or not quite as much?
So that's what I love about brewing and beer is the control. Like, I'm a little bit of a control freak.
Okay.
I think winemakers, I have tons of respect for them because they can basically, I mean, you know, you're at the mercy of the weather, you're at the mercy of so many things. With brewing, you really have control. You know, if the beer is not good,
it's kind of on you.
That's on you. Yeah, you made a mistake somewhere.
Harsh critic.
Yeah, well, but you know, something happened along the lines. And so that's what pulled me into fermentation science is getting questions answered. Like, why? So this flavor appeared in my beer. Why? I want to know from a molecular level. I want, you know, what's the compound being produced? How is it being produced? How can I control it and either promote it or prevent it in future?
Interesting. Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that when drinking the beer, all these little
things that go into it.
It's a rabbit hole of microbiology and biochemistry. If you really want to get into it, you can do it for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I don't know. Biology was pretty tough for me when I was in college. Yeah, it was not my favorite subject.
Nicholas, viewer has a question. So he asks, do you find that there are regions sometimes, maybe in parts of Europe or regions in America, that are overperformers, or is it mostly down at the vineyard level?
Yes, it's both of those. So my heart is in Italy, France, and Spain, really. At the end of the day, I love Virginia wine, don't get me wrong. I absolutely adore it. I'm from Charlottesville. I love going to the wineries. But for those less expensive wines, that are good and overperforming. I do find, like, I mean, look at Italy. There's so many regions. There's so many varietals, and there are so many undiscovered wines where you can really kind of pluck those gems out, and that's exciting.
Yeah, listen, you're talking to two people who are half Italian, half Spanish.
Oh, yeah?
There's lots of Rioja and Chianti Classicos at our house.
What part of Italy?
Mom's from Sicily, or her family.
That's my family, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Sicily as well?
My mom's, yeah.
Wow.
I'll never forget the first time we had Sicilian wine.
Yeah.
Right? Because we didn't know what to do. We were in Rome, and the waiter's like, this is a Sicilian wine. And my dad's like, no, I've never had Sicilian wine. But I think he was a little dubious.
Yeah.
But then we had it, and we're like, this is good.
Sicily makes great wines.
They made great wines.
Yeah. But listen, I remember when we've been blessed to go to Italy twice, and it's like you go there and just house wine, and it's always so delicious. It's like it doesn't really matter what it is.
Yeah.
It's always so good. So
it's a treat.
And I just love that you're focusing kind of on that 20 or less range, because I think sometimes there is a temptation to look, because you're going to see the top things that kind of are in people's minds. Like you'll go in the store, you'll see Barolo, and it's like $50, $60, right?
Sure.
Not realizing, well, you can get the Barolo grape.
Right.
That doesn't say Barolo, because it's like just over the border.
Right.
Still in Italy.
Yeah.
And then suddenly now you're curating in the $20 range, and it's fantastic.
And I think a lot of people can be intimidated by wine because of the price. You know, you don't want to make if you're this high association of price and value.
Yeah.
I'd like to ease the ramp up. You know, you can get good wines. You can start around $12, $15. You know, and learn your palate, figure out what's going on, what you like to drink, and then start you know, really getting into it without parting with all of your money. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do you find that, like, when people find something that they like let's say they begin to experiment with tasting a certain grape or a certain region, and they say, okay, I really like this, that then it's a little easier for them to say, they have a little more confidence that if they go to the $30 range with that region, they're more likely to enjoy it?
Yeah, and I do tastings every Friday and Saturday. I mix it up. It's always something different. And I have regulars that come in, and that's a really nice, easy way to start learning your palate. And once you start learning your palate and how to talk about wine, it becomes a little easier to ask for what you like, or to be able to be, pointed in the right direction. Nothing is going to beat experience. I mean, you have to taste to kind of learn what you like. But the more you taste, the more you learn, well, I love this, I do not care for this.
Yeah.
So that's really nice.
That makes complete sense. Yeah. We got some people tuning in. Nicole Erickson, Olivia Branch, thanks for watching this morning. Bill McChesney, thanks for tuning in this morning.
Nicole.
So what?
I have one quick question. So I also took a quick look at your website. You also sell other products at the Gray too. Can you tell us a little about what else you sell? Yeah, so it's sort of a gourmet gift shop. I do have a lot of chocolates. I mean, wine and chocolate. Dark chocolate?
Lots of dark chocolate, lots of really good chocolates. Pastas.
I noticed the pastas. I was waiting for you.
Now
I know why. Now we know
why. Basically all the things I like are in the shop. Coffee, earrings, just random stuff. Because I want to make it sort of a gift shop as well. So somebody could come in and throw together a convenient gift, a bottle of wine, a nice card.
That always goes a huge way. Absolutely. What I was going to ask, what's kind of the process for sourcing or curating new things to add? Because you talked a little about what's in. How do you go out and even begin to find something to add? Like
wines, particularly,
either wine or beer.
I mean, so I usually start with varietal. So where's there a gap in the shop with a varietal? Like, do I need Verdicchio? Do I need, am I low on affordable Pinot Noir? What? So start there and then just start combing through, and we bear the burden of expense. We buy a lot of stuff just to taste, and then curate it that way. And then, of course, I have wonderful distributors that stop by and taste, on a regular basis. And oftentimes they kind of know what I'm looking for too, in the price range. Sometimes they surprise me with things that are more expensive that I just can't resist. And so that comes into, they know my weak spots. But yeah, so it's just a lot of buying and tasting, and it's a small shop, so it's not difficult to populate it. But I do try to keep things rotating, keep new, interesting things going for somebody I want it to be an eclectic mix. So either a novice can come in or somebody who's, really into wine and still find something that they enjoy.
That's fantastic. Nick is excited. He says he spotted you sell some vintage port as well, which I know we are big fans of.
Port.
That is great. That's great. And it's glad to know that you're there with that. Sometimes that's not an easy thing to find.
Yeah.
So it's always good to say, all right, that's what the beauty of like a local person and an entrepreneur kind of helping provide those things.
There's nothing like a good port during Christmas time. That's like our favorite thing. During December, we open a bottle of port, Christmas cookies, port every night. Perfect.
Beautiful. Yeah. Can't go wrong.
Absolutely. So what's it like kind of being an entrepreneur? I know that I guess you had a little bit entrepreneur background even beforehand with the family print shop, but now almost a year into this.
Yeah, it's different. It's enjoyable. Living the dream.
Yep.
No, but I do like it. I have great customers, made a lot of good friends. A lot of my friends have come out and supported me. It's been a great experience. It's a little different than I expected as far as just, it's a good problem to have, but just a lot of ordering, a lot of keeping on top of stock. So that I cannot complain about because that means things are selling.
That's absolutely. It's one of those good problems to have.
Exactly.
Nicole Erickson says hi.
Yes, hi.
With a little, it's like the celebration thing. So we're glad that the Gray is here and that Noelle started it. We have audience question says, would you suggest other good entry wines for those who are new to wine? So they really have not had a lot of experience in their family, growing up with it. What would be some good, say, at my first try, or maybe, I've had a glass here or there, but a good entry to get
like
into
a specific wine, or do you want to reach
or any type of,
so
it can be as broad as you think is appropriate.
So I love Puglia as a region, the boot heel of Italy. I love it because a lot of really inexpensive, amazing wines are coming from there. A lot of times they're pretty fruit forward, which is really great if you're entering wine. Yeah. You're not going to start with Montepulciano, that's going to just
really,
get you. You can have, it's really fun grapes, but just very approachable grapes too. There's so many. Spain has, France, the Côte d'Aron, that's a really great one to start with.
There have been so many good ones of those lately.
So good. I would say Burgundy, but it's a bit pricey. But yeah.
So you try it out and then get to there.
Yeah. Burgundy is just so, Burgundy.
Yeah. You just say the word when you taste it, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. But but that's a great, I hadn't known about Puglia as a region.
I think it's a really fun one. And then, I've been having a lot of good Chilean wines lately as well. Surprisingly so. There's some good stuff. There's good stuff everywhere. It's just a matter of, unearthing them and getting them over here.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like, and yours is a perfect place, I think, to go for an entry person. Because the problem is, if you just walk straight into a grocery store, you are going to be confused out of your mind, and you will have no idea. Because it's going to run the gamut between $5, but tastes like $5, to $50, but I can't afford that. Yeah. So to be able to go in and say, all right, Noelle, I'm new to this. What can you recommend?
Yeah.
And really learn from there. Yeah. And I think that's a great way to get started.
And I try to carry wines that you don't find at the grocery store as well.
Exactly.
So a little more eclectic mix.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Noelle, before we let you go, where can people find you? Where is the Gray, and then online and physically?
Yeah, so it's thegray.shop, but physically we're about halfway down Elliewood. If you know where Ragged Mountain Running Shop is, we're a couple buildings down, right-hand side, yellow building. We're tucked away in the yellow building, but their signs, and that's where.
So take a nice little walk. With the corner you always gotta walk. You always gotta walk. So park, wherever you can.
I do validate for the corner parking lot, the one behind Trinity and Finch.
That's even better.
So
you get validate. It won't even cost you.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
You should spend You should spend an hour there.
Yeah.
You should spend it, which probably would be for me. That would be easy to do. Easy to do. I think we have one more audience question actually before I let you go. I hate to miss the audience questions. Let me check. Monica from Montana asks us, what are the most sought after wines? What have you been seeing a lot of movement in lately that people might be interested in?
Well, with summer, it's rosé.
Rosé.
That's it's rosé season. Tons of rosés. Vino Verdes, bright, crisp, fun wines. And then, of course, always the staples. We'll start to see a shift here with more demand for red. And,
as
it crisps up.
Exactly.
It's not quite there yet.
So the demand for whites maybe because they can be chilled?
Yes, it's nice, cool, refreshing, Yeah,
absolutely.
And same with rosés.
And got to end with a positive comment, which I love. Nicole says she even has so much more confidence buying wine in grocery stores because of her experience in the Dre. So it's not just you go and you have a great time, but now when you see other things, you're like, I have the confidence to know what I'm doing.
Wine confidence.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Education.
There you go.
And Carlton Anderson says best wine place in town. Tasting experience is great as well.
Hi, Carlton.
So Noelle, it's been an absolute
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's very kind. Yeah.
Oh no, of course. Well, we'll be excited to visit and to have you back.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on today.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well, that's so neat. I just love the idea.
Well, especially because we're such big wine drinkers, and not to sound that in a negative way, in a positive way.
Oh yeah,
we love our wine, and it's
appreciate.
Just hearing the passion behind the wine, and then kind of getting the feeling of.
I think just the confidence all around. I think the great idea of saying yes, these are wines you can enjoy that are at an affordable price, and also then getting the confidence of saying if I am ready to buy a gift or to shell out a little more for a $50 bottle, that someone has tasted it. Like Noelle said, it's passed through her liver before it gets to yours. So you have a little more confidence. I'm not doing this blind.
Plus, like she said, there's wines there that you don't really find at grocery stores, so it makes it feel special.
Exactly.
This was in a small store that specializes in wine.
Exactly. And supporting local entrepreneurs.
There you go.
That's even better. I mean, it's a win-win. So be sure to check that out, thedre.shop, and on the corner there are signs. So, and you can get parking validated, which is important. That's fantastic. So from one great entrepreneur to a couple more, we are super excited. We'll be welcoming back to the show David Deaton, and also welcoming for the first time Ann Thompson. They are the co-founders of Mindsalt. David, Ann, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you all so much.
We've been looking forward to it since we've had it on the calendar. So, David, it's been a little bit. So what I'll do is have each of you tell us a little bit about yourselves, tell the audience how you first became interested in the field of, working with businesses, helping with, consulting. I know is a common word that's used, but really helping businesses and business people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the opportunity to continue to deepen the service that we provide to the community, and recognizing that the work that I do could have that direct impact to individuals when I'm able to do that from a consulting capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been consulting for over 20 years now, and I started out in corporate America for about 10 years, and just found that I wasn't able to have the impact that I was really wanting to have. I worked in very large automotive and telecommunication corporations, so I got a lot of training and a lot of great things out of that experience, but I really wanted to be able to have a more quick impact and be able to implement solutions a lot more quickly than what kind of happens in the large corporate cog. And I saw consultants come into those companies and do great things, and so I was inspired to want to do that for other organizations.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So David and Ann, how did you two meet, and what made you decide to kind of join forces?
We met through the CIC.
Awesome.
Okay.
Oh, I'm a huge CIC fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm lucky.
We're good friends with CIC. We love having them on.
I'm lucky to be on their board, and so many people come through that have gone through the 16-week workshops. That's fantastic. That's where you both met for the first time.
We did. Yep. We had an opportunity to hear each other lecture and realize that there was a really great complementary experiences and skills that we would bring, and so we just instantly started collaborating. That was actually about 5 years ago, approximately. Wow. So we've been collaborating for quite a bit. And it just continues to allow us to amplify both the portfolio of services that we're offering, ranging from strategy and research and analysis and process improvement, operations and execution, but also allows us to sort of deepen that impact when we're working together.
Absolutely. So what are some of those services? Like I know it kind of pitch and run the gamut because there's so much involved in being an entrepreneur, but what are some of the most common services that you're helping people with?
Yeah, so we don't like to talk about sides of the house, but that's kind of how we end up talking about it. So I have an engineering background, so the areas I focus on are business process improvement, Six Sigma quality implementation. I kind of ground everything in that kind of theory of constraints, Six Sigma quality, lean manufacturing, but all of those principles can be applied to really any organization, big or small. A solopreneur can benefit from those kind of ways of thinking, as well as any of the large organizations that we work with. And then David and I just really meld well when I'm working in that realm of executing and improving and optimizing organizations, and then it's aligned with the strategic thinking and plan for the long term of that business to make sure that the ROI isn't just right now in the first year. It's going to be something that's aligned with what they want to do for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, so if you will, my side of the house, then, I cut my teeth in market research and then put that into a strategic context and working to sort of facilitate those discussions, but then also to do the research to bring insight to those discussions as well. And then we both combine a little bit to look at sort of the business health from a financial perspective, and that's an area that we sort of co-share, if you will, in the work that we do. So in our mission, we talk a lot about how we can help bring purpose to organizations. We're very much a purpose-driven organization. How can we do that with the organizations that we work with? Then how can we also improve their productivity, which brings in Ann's side of the house, and then the profitability that is really the synergy of both those efforts coming together. One of the things that you heard from both Ann and I's answer about how we got started in this was the deep impact that we could have with both of us sort of use that word, and that really is so true. And when we look at that synergy between the services that we offer, it's great to have a strategy, it's great to know your direction, but if you can't implement it, it really can be frustrating. So it was very easy to collaborate with Ann because we could give so much more depth to the work that we were doing. Likewise, and I wouldn't speak for you, but I think that there was sort of this sense of, hey, I'm working really hard on this process improvement, but in what context? Is this really getting the right return? And so instantly that just quick touch base that we were having, or the deep work we were having with a particular client on a project, always brought both of those things into context and visibility. So no strategy, no direction, no research without understanding where it's going, but also at the same time, no massive overhauls, improvements, and optimizations without understanding that larger strategic context. Yeah,
that makes complete sense. It's true. Yeah, you can't really. You could have one without the other, but it wouldn't be complete. You would be missing, like I said, you'd be missing the purpose, and then you see it a lot. Like sometimes you come out of a strategic planning session, you're like, okay, I have my values, I have my mission, I have my vision, right? And then you say, oh, what now? Kind of, you're like the fish in Finding Nemo. You're like, you got to the ocean, you have your great plan. You're like, now what? Like, what do I do? How do I implement my plan?
Yep, absolutely. You don't want that to be something that sits on the shelf for 3 years and 5 years, and we wonder, what did we do with that? So, we've been doing a lot of work recently with that exact scenario. I've been really working hand in hand. We pride ourselves in being shoulder to shoulder with our clients and getting right in there in the weeds and helping them really execute on those things.
Absolutely. So what's kind of the process? All right, so like a business owner or an entrepreneur walks in the door, gives you a call. What's kind of the process of working with you both? They say, especially if they come in, let's say, kind of from scratch. Maybe they haven't done a strategic plan in 5 years or since they started the company. Maybe they've never done one. They don't really know what to do. They're growing. What's kind of, from that initial phone call, what kind of happens?
Yeah, so most of our initial engagements don't start with, hey, we need a strategic plan. Some do. So actually the way in which most of the organizations come to us is that there's some challenge that they're facing. And so there's a good challenge, which is we're experiencing hypergrowth. We're trying to figure out how to do that. Another challenge might be we're stalled out, or things aren't looking as way we anticipated. And so that's actually the way in which most individuals or large corporations as well as small corporations, and we work with both, are starting with this. They've got that challenge in front of them. So I would say that part of our initial discussion with them is sort of that initial triage or that initial understanding of need and what's really right in front of them. And then once we do that through sort of that combination format that we talked about, it really then brings in the next step, which is, okay, now that we've sort of got that in motion, for which was the immediate challenge for you, what's next in order to make sure that your business is successful as you define that success? And so that may be working on continued optimization, process improvement. Anne gave a great example about some project implementation that we're working on, but I know also we're working on a whole systems integration, working with a concrete pourer in regards to getting Builder Trend implemented, which actually, if I'm not mistaken, is from Co-Construct, if they were bought from Co-Construct, which is a local organization, company here. And so those types of things are very natural for us to move into next. So it really depends on where we go from there.
Yeah, we always want to make sure that we really understand what's your pain point that you're feeling. Like that's one of the first things we want to understand in that initial conversation is truly what the pain is. And then a lot of times we find that people think they maybe have misdiagnosed that. They think they need something, but as we do kind of our investigation, the root cause of the problem is often something different than what they think that it is. And so we could go after the thing that maybe is causing, that chronic, immediate pain and resolve that quickly, but then we need to take a step back. We are very much grounded in data all the time, so we're trying to measure and understand what will be the impacts if we change this, what will be improved, and ensure that return on investment that will have the largest bang for the buck.
Absolutely, that makes complete sense. I have some people tuning in.
Yes.
Johnny Ornelas watching the show this morning. Amelia DeBrun, Stacy Sepp watching the show this morning. Thank you both for tuning in this morning. So one thing, it's funny because we talked a lot. One of the questions we commonly ask, someone is like, what's it like to be an entrepreneur? But you're both in it. I was thinking of that question this morning. I was like, well, this is interesting because here you are, you're having that impact with other entrepreneurs while also doing it yourself. So what's it kind of like? I'll ask it as a dual way. What's it like being entrepreneurs while also helping and advising and working with entrepreneurs?
Well, I think one of the funny things that happens is we sometimes don't practice what we preach. And we're advising people on things, and then we take a look at ourselves, and we're like, maybe we could be doing better in that ourselves. But I also, through the years of consulting, have owned several other businesses, and so I very much feel and understand the entrepreneurial experience from a deep level. And I started businesses when I was a child as well, so I've got it in my blood, and so that's part of why I'm drawn to doing this, is really helping people. They get into these businesses because they're really passionate about something, and then there's all this other stuff that has to be done to run that business well. And so helping some of those smaller organizations is one of the most fun things that we get to do, because you really see that immediate impact, and you've been there yourself, you've felt it yourself, and you can see the weight lifted off their shoulders when they see, you guys get what I'm talking about, and there's actually we can solve this, we can do this, there's hope.
Yeah, just to build on that answer, I think Anne really makes a poignant point about the relatability. So when you're working with those entrepreneurs, it's relatability and taking that weight off, as you said. But the other part of it is that because we have so many large clients as well, and both of us share deep experiences in the corporate world, and bringing all that we've had in our corporate world experiences and our corporate leadership into some of our larger clients, being an entrepreneur gives us the understanding of how to be flexible, which sometimes can be a little bit of a trick and an art with a larger organization. Yes. So those organizations that are larger that we work with really appreciate our flexibility, our large toolkit, to give some jargony words, but just our large things that we can bring to the table as far as skills and abilities, and they see us as a resource that can sort of solve a lot of the challenges that they're working with. So it's that relatability, but also that flexibility, and that gives us a lot of great range. We have a large contingent of clients that are here in Charlottesville, but the majority of our business is not. We have a large contingent of small clients, but we have a large portfolio of large clients as well, and that range comes from that relatability, but also that flexibility.
And I bet you in some ways probably the range also then feeds into what you're able to do, because you're able to kind of, if you're working with a smaller client, you say, here's what you might encounter going forward as you grow, as you become larger, and kind of vice versa. Maybe tell some of the larger ones, remember when you were we used to be this flexible, here's what you can still do in a sense.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful how it kind of reinforces it, because the experience of working with both sizes, I would imagine, the experience of, say, working on that spectrum of size and how big companies are helps you with each of them in turn.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And I think that one of the things that you could hear from Ann's comments too is that the recognition that the individuals that we're working with, both large corporations or small, there's someone's individual aspirations that are being expressed. And if you're sort of a director or a worker in a large organization, your aspirations may be able to go home and know you're getting a paycheck. Yeah. If you're a solopreneur, your aspiration is to sort of realize that vision. And so what I think we both connect with is an understanding of those aspirations, regardless of the organization and the individual, and how can we work to make sure that we're serving. And that's our vision, is to really make sure that those aspirations that individuals have are fulfilled, whatever they might be. We need to be in service of those aspirations. Those are very real and human emotions that are on the table. And when organizations are less successful, those aspirations are let down. And that's something that we work very hard from a vision standpoint to say, we don't want those aspirations to be let down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you'll recognize that one of the things that pops up so frequently when we interview a small business owner, an entrepreneur, is that often almost all the time what leads you into it is that passion, here's what I want to do, right? And then whenever we ask the question, what's it like being an entrepreneur, right? When you start, that's when you realize there's all these other things that have to happen behind the scenes, which help the passion come true, but aren't really
complicated.
Exactly. You start a baking business, you go into it thinking, well, baking is what I do. But there's all those things that have to happen behind the scenes to make it possible to keep baking, right? And I just love the fact that you two are in this business to kind of help that part of it and say, what can we do to make that part that you find out when you become an entrepreneur is part of it? What do we do to help that part go more smoothly and help and really work so that the passion can keep going, and you can keep going and saying, I get to go to work and do what I love to do and not feel the weight. Not that you don't have to do it, you still have to do the things that have to happen, right? But not feel the weight oh man, all I do is this stuff that isn't connected to what my passion is. And I love that you're out there helping people with that part of it, so that the dream, what they're good at and what they want to share with people, can kind of keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the things we always recommend to businesses like that is, all of those things that you don't love doing that you still have to do. One of the first things that I recommend we do is let's get it down on paper. What is step-by-step thing? What's the little checklist that you can do when you have to do your monthly invoicing, and it's this big albatross that you don't ever want to do, and you have to sit down to do it. Let's write down that process so that the next time you have to do it, it can go more quickly and more quickly. And then once you also have things down on paper like that, you can also outsource it. If you can, if we can garner enough resources to put that off on somebody else to do, we always try to find out what are the things that you like doing the least. Let's focus on those first and see if we can come up with a way to either eliminate it. You don't even have to do it anymore. It doesn't need to exist. Or can we make it just be a thing that's just quick and easy, we're done? Or can we pass it off to another organization? Or can we hire someone to come in and help with those things? So, that's a key complaint that every small business owner has. Yes.
I would imagine. David, any success stories or things that like kind of come to your mind and like, oh man, I love when this kind of happens, when you see this result?
So we're working with a large nonprofit in the area. So we actually have both commercial clients and nonprofit clients.
They need a nonprofit, probably similar. Like you don't realize, oh man, I have to kind of run this like a business.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think for both of us, being a purpose-driven organization and sort of recognizing the strong commercial value that has, that resonates with a lot of our commercial clients. But then also that is sort of part and parcel of the nonprofit world. So it's actually very easy for us to go back and forth between the two. But there's one in particular, a large one in the area that we've been working with and really seeing over the last less than 12 months, sort of almost a total transformation, which is something that we both aspire to, because that means we're bringing in both sides of the house. And so we've done everything from the research, we've done everything from the strategy, we've done everything from the project management and support. And so it's really sort of working with them to move that into a different direction. And so the feedback that we'll get is, individuals will send an email to the executive director saying, I've been so inspired, I've worked here so long, I've never been more inspired to be part of this organization than they are now. And so when we receive those types of emails from the leader of an organization that's really talking about that, that just is tremendous fuel to know that the work that we're doing in combination is having a tremendous impact to the organizations we're supporting.
That's awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Before we let you go, where can people get in touch and find you guys?
Yeah, on our website, it's the Mindsalt, THE Mindsalt, MINDSALT.com. Both of our LinkedIn profiles are linked from there, and we'd be happy to talk with anyone about anything we can do to help.
It's super easy. I think when you get to the Mindsalt.com, there's like a nice big button that says "Let's talk."
Absolutely.
So if you want to talk to David and Ann, the Mindsalt.com,
you can't miss it.
You can't miss it. Let's talk.
Perfect. The website's perfect.
Yep, it's perfect. Well, David and Ann, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
No, it's always good to have you on. All right, take care. From what I always love, you learn new things when you have, minds like David and Ann on that, like they're just so in tune with like what it's like to be an entrepreneur.
And important work too, because I think being an entrepreneur is always difficult, and like they said, like sometimes you kind of have a purpose but you don't, in a way. You kind of like, you have an idea of what you want to do, but then not really an idea of how to implement it.
Yeah.
And then in a way sort of sell it.
And sometimes the act of working with a group like the Mindsalt,
who've done it for lots of other entrepreneurs.
Sometimes the very act of trying to formulate what your goals are and so forth helps you find out what they are.
Exactly.
Like you sit there and say, I thought this was my vision, but actually it's not. Like this is what it really was. But until you go through that process, you don't realize it.
Exactly. It's like having all these ideas and just like, no, let's try to reel it in and just get like a solid 1 page of sort of like a business plan. Like, this is what you want to do. This is your purpose. This is your initiative.
Exactly.
And then kind of roll with it.
Yeah. So it's great to have an entrepreneur like that in the community doing that. Bob Yarbrough, thanks for tuning in this morning and watching the show. So we're excited. One of my favorite parts of today, Mañana, is our monthly conversations with Matthias. So we're happy to bring back on Matthias Yohn from Matthias Yohn Realty. Always good to have you on.
Always wonderful.
How you doing today?
Once a month, and I enjoy being here. Thanks so much for having me again and for the willingness to listen to me.
No, we love listening to you. That's why we have you on.
And I kid you not, all of us at the office, some of my dads said, I want to be on with, like last time he was like, oh man, I haven't been on with Matthias in a while. I want to be on when he comes on. So
you're in rotation.
Yeah, exactly. It's in high demand. That seat is in high demand. When
what about that seat? What, that seat's not in demand? No one can get that seat?
No one wants to replace, you're not in a rush to replace me with the
No one dares to, Alex.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Don't stroke his ego. Don't stroke his ego.
So, Matthias, one of the things we were thinking is we talked about we talked about the fall, and last time we touched a little bit on what it's like to begin to go out and look for a home in the fall. And one of the things that's been popping up a lot that actually people have been asking us recently, and what I wanted to talk to you about a little bit was, and I've had at least in the last few weeks 3-4 people ask me this question, like, people tune in and they either read on the news that like there's less supply of homes that are there, particularly in Charlottesville area, right? Mm-hmm. Or they themselves will go out and be like, oh man, there's a lot less. I'm looking for a home, but there's a lot fewer options than I'm used to. How do you kind of work with people and, you know, talk to them and sort of lay those expectations when someone goes to buy a house, but we're now in an environment where there's a lot less inventory than they may be used to or thought there would be?
Well, what you're asking or describing is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing right now with where the market is, and how that impacts our inventory or supply, as you called it. And if you look at the numbers and compare it to last year, for example, we do know that we have less inventory, less homes on the market available for our clients to purchase, and at the same time, the prices are up. And that is not a coincidence. Yeah. Obviously, that's a correlation that we need to consider when talking about buying a home. And those that make the decision to purchase a home and contact me, and obviously they already are aware of the situation oftentimes, but it's also my duty to set expectations with them and really sit down and look at what challenges we will be facing. And maybe we won't at all because we're looking at an area that is not as hot as, let's say, downtown Charlottesville, Belmont in Charlottesville. But I think you're putting the finger on the biggest issue right now, supply. We do hope that the fall market will bring a little bit more on the market. And just looking at the new listings this morning, I am very hopeful and confident. I have a group of buyer clients I'm working with, and I think we are all, not just me, them as well, looking each morning what's coming on the market right now. And then you need to be quick. You're competing with several buyers for the same property, and everyone's circumstances are slightly different. And so it's really a job to sit down and determine what are your circumstances. How much can you afford? Are you prepared for a down payment, for the closing costs, etc.? And then it makes sense for them to sit down with a lender to figure out the financial aspect of things. But it does make sense to know where you are, what your circumstances are, so that you are ready to act immediately with me when the perfect home is on the market, after we have seen it, in order to find out how can we compete with others, how do we get the edge. And there are several strategies, and that's a big part of my job, and actually the exciting part, how to win that property for my clients. But there are certain factors that go into that.
It's strange. It's almost a combination of patience, right? In the sense of like, with the lower inventory, you may not find the house you want in 2 days, right? But also the ability to act quickly, because then if you do see one you want, you can't sit there and say, oh, let me think about it for a couple weeks, see how I feel. It's a combination of those two things, which might appear contradictory, but they kind of come together in this type of market.
Yeah, and it comes back to that situation where you want to be prepared for. For example, if you are relying on a loan, then speak to the lender and get a pre-qualification letter or pre-approval letter. Know the neighborhoods, know where you're looking, know exactly how much house you need. And for that purpose, it makes sense to really look at homes with me. You would be surprised how many people find out in the process that they actually need an additional bedroom for office space, or that they would appreciate a bigger yard than they thought. At the same time, I've worked with people that in the process of looking at homes decided that, oh, a condo is actually exactly what we need. We might not need that single family with the big yard. And all of a sudden we're looking at different properties. So it's about being prepared, having conversations, and getting to know your own preferences. That is not necessarily only something for first-time home buyers. No, you would be surprised. People that are looking to buy their fifth or sixth home are learning still things about their preferences and the process.
That actually kind of connects. We have an audience question. Monica says, hello, Matthias.
Hi, Monica.
She has a question, which I think is kind of in this vein. And there may not be like a specific number answer, but how many houses should people look at before purchasing one? In other words, I think trying to get at like how many houses, even if you're not saying this is the one, how many should you kind of view before you actually, say, okay, yeah, I'm going to immediately put an offer on this one? Or does it vary, or is there some kind of, it's important to get a sense of your own preference by viewing multiple?
It depends on, that's a lame answer, it depends, but it does apply. It depends on the circumstances. Again, one of my favorite group of clients are those from out of state that know that they want to live in Charlottesville or surrounding area because of a job, for example, but don't know the neighborhoods yet. And then, so I get to show them the neighborhoods and look at different homes. And the reason why I like that part the most is I moved here myself. I'm clearly not from Charlottesville originally. I moved here in 2014, and so the lenses or the perspective that I had back then when exploring Charlottesville and the area is exactly what helps me now to put myself in the shoes of the out-of-state client and really maneuver through the neighborhoods and explore and then look at homes. And to your question about, or Monica's question about the number of homes, it depends. But we also need to acknowledge that chances are we will not get immediately the first home we look at, the first home that we decide to put an offer on. That's just the reality of today's market. And so for some people it really takes 3-4 homes to look at, to find out what they're looking for. Many times people are prepared, and that's one of the advantages of having access online to the MLS, but also to online platforms. We have tools like 3D walkthrough, video walkthroughs, as a result of the pandemic. But it's here to stay because it allows people remotely also to have a better understanding of the property. It's something that we send as a link sometimes when we can't personally show them because they're not in state, etc.
That's very interesting. Speaking of that kind of thing, the competitive advantage, one of the things I've been meaning to ask you for a while, because it's kind of been on my mind, is, we often, like in the financial business, Michael and I, we talk about pre-approval with people from the financial side, right? Knowing what you can afford, etc. But let's say you have individuals who are saying, okay, I kind of already know what I can afford, right? What are their advantages to having that pre-approval, that pre-qualification from a buying perspective, from a competitive or from the realtor side, as opposed to from the financial side?
Yeah, so let's put ourselves in the situation of a seller, a homeowner that's ready to put the house on the market. And then let's say that's you, and you receive 4, or let's say 5 different offers from 5 agents representing buyers interested in your property. How do you decide on which one to take? It's not only who's offering the most. Is it maybe cash over financing because you need to sell in 2 weeks as quickly as possible? Or do you require flexibility because moving is a stressful time, and for the transition you would appreciate as much time as possible? And so maybe as a result of that, you're looking for a buyer that offers you that flexibility. And all of a sudden, that specific buyer has an edge over the others because they're offering a lot of time, maybe a leaseback agreement, whatever the situation requires. And so it depends on a variety of things. But I think we can all agree, the more prepared the buyer is, the more likely as a homeowner I'm willing to work with that buyer. And knowing what that buyer can afford is a big part. So in what that means for us, if you don't have a pre-approval letter from your financial institution, your lender, loan officer, at the same time you don't have the cash to purchase the home like that, then obviously we won't consider your offer if you're not prepared and if you can't show us that you are pre-approved by the bank. That's from the homeowner's perspective, right? So it really makes sense to be prepared to cover all the aspects and know what you can officially afford.
Would you say there's a good amount of timing at which to go down the route? Because obviously a lot of questions that will often get asked is that, but doesn't getting approved, won't it ding my credit score, right? And, obviously we work people through that, but is there a good timing to say, because obviously, a pre-approval will temporarily, when your credit gets asked, it hits your credit score, right? And then you have a certain amount of time. The pre-approval is not like endless. It's not, you're pre-approved for the next 5 years. It's usually 120 days and so forth. Is there a time at which you would say, in other words, if you are only beginning to think about buying a home versus, okay, I know I've seen my neighborhoods, I've visited a couple, is now the time to do it? Where in the process would you suggest, from a competitive standpoint, people begin to seek that pre-approval to kind of give them enough time to search while also making sure that they're prepared?
Sure. One of the things that you go through as a young couple, a family looking to purchase a home in Charlottesville is obviously what or how do our finances look and how much would we qualify for if we seek to get a loan. And I have to be careful here. I'm a realtor. I'm not a financial advisor or loan officer, but we oftentimes connect clients to loan officers so that they can figure out how the situation is looking like for them, always with the goal of getting that pre-approval letter. Now, oftentimes, I see it most of the times valid for 30 days, that pre-approval letter, so that gives us some time to look at a few homes, maybe place a bid on our property. But what that means for the lender is they already have a lot of information from that couple, from that family, so it will be easy for them to renew that pre-approval on an as-needed basis in order to send it to me, because I will need some kind of documentation to send along with the offer contract in order to be considered for that property. So what is the best timing for that? Well, as soon as you know that your circumstances change and you're looking to purchase a home, something bigger or something smaller, depending on your situation, you're encouraged to have a conversation with your lender about exactly that. I appreciate working with people that obviously know what they can afford, and if they're still in the early process, then that's something we have on the list of preparation. Exactly.
Absolutely. No, it makes total sense. See, this is why I love talking with you. Just like you help answer, because I think a lot of people only look at it from the finance side. They'll be like, I don't know what I can afford, hence I need to visit a lender. But there's so much that goes into it, even from just being competitive. Particularly, I would think in a market like this, it might be different if there were, 10 sellers for every one buyer, right? And you could say, well, I have time to do that. But particularly in something like this, the more competitive you can be, that might be the difference between actually being the winning bid and not.
And when I think back to the pandemic, when the market was that crazy, we all know the stories. People got creative about how to win that property, how to remain competitive, and we saw love letters, personal letters by the buyers addressed to the seller, where they explain why they should sell the property to them, maybe because they have a dog that would really love that yard, and then they they send pictures along of their dog. So those love letters.
I've never heard of that.
That was one strategy, and there are a few concerns surrounding that. Fair housing rules that we have to abide by. So love letters are oftentimes not accepted anymore. Yeah. But it just shows how people try to become more interesting to the sellers because their sellers have so much power right now, and so you have to adapt and deal with the situation. But the better prepared you are, and I say this again and again here, the more advantage you have over others. It really makes sense to know which neighborhood you are interested in, what preferences you have surrounding space, location. Do we need to talk about the school system? Is that relevant for you? What's the commute to your day job?
Yeah.
All those factors.
You want to know those things beforehand. Kind of.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's part of our job, to sit down and
help people figure that out. Yeah.
Over all those questions in order to be prepared for that day the perfect property is on the market.
Absolutely, yeah.
A lot goes into selling a house beyond just.
It's why you need the help. In other words, because you're going to think of things that a person may not think of in advance, right? And you're going to kind of help work them through that and say, "Have you thought of this?" And, "Oh my goodness, I didn't think of that."
Yeah, let's face it. Buying a home is one of the most emotional times of one's life, and the better prepared we are, and the more I can take that emotion out of the situation by just focusing on the fact, the more success we have. And frankly, that's the exciting part of my job. That's the part I really enjoy.
Absolutely. And speaking of Charlottesville, I know we're excited. Last time on I Love CVille, mentioned how much they are big fans. And I think, Mike, you had a question you wanted to ask.
Yeah. Well, what was my question? Oh, your favorite dish? What's your favorite dish at Auto Turkish CVille? I know there's a lot of good dishes, but if you could kind of try to pinpoint one.
Well, I'm biased because I'm from Germany, and Turkish cuisine in Germany is very prominent. So we have those Turkish street food gyro style places on every street corner, and the number one selling food item is what we call döner. And that is similar to what Otto is offering there, the gyro kebab. Exactly. Yeah. And so that's what I go for when I go to Otto's. It reminds me of, the Turkish minority in Germany, but it's also just a quick and relatively healthy lunch to have.
Oh, absolutely.
So go for that. They call it here the Autobahn.
Autobahn. Okay, but that's basically the junior kebab.
That's exactly what I'm used to from
my brain.
Yeah.
Okay. I gotta remember that.
There's a strong relationship between the Turkish and the Germans. The Turkish are the biggest minority in Germany, actually.
Yeah, well, and historically there were all those big connections.
Yeah.
They
the
had
Italians
a lot of
and the
back
Turkish.
And forth. Yeah, exactly. Even like World War I. So pre-World War I, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey, they were all they had a lot of influence on each other, culturally, language, food especially. So
weren't they alliance in World War I?
I think they were allied in World War I.
Yeah,
that was but I think that was a result of cultural connections and so forth. Yeah. Exactly. The cultural part is kind of the most fascinating because you did to see all that. So it's true when we had visited Austria way back, right? There were also a lot of Turkish places, little street, kind of like the street food kind of thing. So
that's how I bonded with Ali, the co-owner of the restaurant. He speaks German. He has been to Germany, and it shows again that Turkish-German relationship. You're just talking about the World War, but actually after the Second World War, when a lot of Germany was destroyed and we wanted to rebuild the economy and houses and cities as well, we invited especially Italian and Turkish families as guest workers with the ability to stay and transfer the their families to Germany. And as a result, we have this multicultural diversity in Germany, with the Turks being the biggest minority. It's funny, we came from real estate to Turkish migrants in Germany, so we are covering everything.
Exactly, we always cover the gamut, you know, which I love. It just goes to, I think, also how multicultural Charlottesville is, in that sense that we're lucky enough to have like an Auto Turkish CVille here, or all the different restaurants we have. I think that's what makes it such an attractive place. Just not. I speak to people from other parts of the country, like maybe you've got your Mexican restaurant and your Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, you have one Mexican, one Chinese, and one pizzeria, and that's it. Everything else is McDonald's or Burger King
or American, right?
Exactly.
And so it's nice here that you actually have that. That you coming from Germany and say, "Oh yes, there is that here." It's just like what I'm used to.
You know what we are missing in Charlottesville?
Which one?
A German restaurant.
Oh, that is true. Charlottesville.
Why
proper.
don't we have a single German restaurant? We have one in Madison, and in the Valley as well, but not.
But listen, I'm upset because I went to the Bavarian chef, and we always enjoyed it. We're like, oh no, they're dressed, with the Bavarian clothes. The food's so delicious. And then my brother, his now wife Elizabeth, her family's from Bavaria. She goes, this isn't real Bavarian food. I said, she ruined my experience forever. She ruined it. Now I go here, it's like, it's not authentic.
And it's not authentic. It's very Americanized. But
no, don't say that, because I want to go there and imagine I'm in Germany. Now I'm not looking at the food. It's like, no, it's not.
They tease her still. They're like, you had to say that in Bavaria. And part of it is also too, like, we think of Bavaria as like, or Germany is like one big place where they all eat the same food. It's like, well, no. Like, this town's Bavarian cuisine might be totally different from a town 20 minutes over. That just makes the Jäger Schnitzel just a little bit different. It's just.
I find it funny how Americans see Germany as a country, and obviously I'm generalizing here. It's the stereotype that a lot of Americans have of us Germans, and that we all just dress in leather pants, the lederhosen, and that we drink 1 liter beers all day and eat schnitzel. So that's pretty much that stereotype. And you're right, it really varies from region to region. Where I'm from, you would never drink a beer out of a 1 liter glass, for example.
But I did that. It was so much fun.
That's in the south. That's Bavaria.
No, I can say, having visited Bavaria now, they actually do that.
Okay.
So that is not a stereotype.
That's authentic. At least something's authentic.
In that part of Germany, they do actually do that. And I did see people in the lederhosen. So that is real. Just not the whole of Germany.
You know what? One of those times that I'm on the show, I'm going to come in lederhosen.
That would be so much fun.
Just two.
Monica will probably have a blast.
And we'll get 1 liter cups of beer too. We'll like during Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
Let's do it for Oktoberfest. An Oktoberfest special.
Yes.
Okay. Let's do it. We'll do it. Doug Sushan, I think, watching the show this morning, and Andreas Krusling, I think is how it's pronounced. It's the O with the little thing. So I hope I did that
Krusling.
Right. Andreas Krusling is watching the show this morning, so thank you both for joining us. Matthias, it's always been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Love it.
Yeah.
Monica says let her know when you're on with the lederhosen, so we will do that.
Sometimes people joke and say, you speak German, but you won't ever have German clients here in Charlottesville. And it's true there are not too many Germans here, but we always have one very loyal German viewer of the network, Monica, out of Montana.
Extremely loyal.
I really appreciate
her.
Yeah.
And she wakes up early. It's like 9:30 in Montana now, so it's early.
She's committed.
She is.
Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen, Monika.
There we go. Matthias, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
So good.
It was fun.
It's always fun.
Lots of fun, as always.
Well, and that means next month we will be here in lederhosen.
Exactly. We're going to do it. I'm writing that down, and I'm sure Nick has probably memorized it already.
We're going to have a whole thing planned out. We have to start planning now.
Start planning.
Special for today, Mañana.
Absolutely. Seemaine Flanagan, I just wanted to read, she tuned in today, and she had commented on Noelle, that Noelle and her shop are fantastic. So just wanted to read that comment as well. Really appreciate everyone commenting and watching this morning.
It was a fantastic show.
Love our guest. It's been a great show.
Quickly, I know you want to reveal something.
So yes, for Charlottesville Opera, if you've waited for this on the show, so there are two things for next season that you have to look forward to. Is The Music Man is going to be the musical, very famous musical from the 50s. It was made into a movie in 1962. And then the opera is going to be Le Cider d'Amour, which is one of my favorites. So it's like the Love Elixir, famous opera, very fun one. It's
by who?
Fun. Donizetti.
Oh, okay.
Is the composer. Le Cider d'Amour, very fun about it. It's funny, they're both about con men. Like The Music Man is about a con man, and Le Cider d'Amour is about this guy who sells like love elixir. And the question is whether the love elixir works or not.
Interesting.
So
how's the music in that one? Good.
Oh, great, very good, very good. So, and I know Elizabeth Urpí, Nick's wife, was very excited about The Music Man.
Oh yeah, she's already probably bugging him that ticket.
So, and then I'm excited about Le Cider d'Amour. So there'll be a great season next year for Charlottesville Opera. There's going to be a great show next week. We're going to have Phil Reese. He is the owner of Unlocked History Estate Rooms. So that is going to be super excited. I have been to some of them, and they are fantastic.
Yes, you've told me wonderful things. I'm jealous.
As well as Jay Berger is going to come back down from Sound Around and Matterport. So he's going to come on to talk about his businesses. So we're really excited for that. Really appreciate everyone who tuned in this morning. It's been a great show. Thank you for
having me, Alex.
For being on. Thanks, Judah Whittower behind the camera, always making us look good. Thank you all our fantastic commenters and viewers. We look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you, of course, to Emergent Financial Services, to our partners, Castle Hill Cider, Matthias Realty, Craddock Serious Insurance, Forward Adelante. We look forward to seeing you all next week. But until that time, as we like to close it out on the show, hasta mañana.